What I'm going to do here is a quick review of an edit of a stacked Milky Way image that I shot last June in Bryce Canyon at Fairyland Point. What I have here, here is the single image. This was shot 29 minutes before Astro Dark, so it's not yet completely dark. And as you can tell, there might be, as you can maybe tell, the moon is still in the sky. This was a 22% moon, and it was still 22% over the 22 degrees over the horizon. So the moon is lighting the sky and the foreground quite heavily. This is the single image, and I am going to stack them in Starry Landscape Stacker. So here you can see this was shot at ISO 3200, 19 millimeters, f2.8, 10 seconds each image. This particular one, I added +1 in post, so on the Sony camera, this is equivalent to ISO 6400. I have tested +1 in post and versus not, and the noise it makes is exactly the same as doubling your ISO. So it's just kind of a habit I tend to do. So this is the single image. What I've done, I took that, ran the Lightroom denoise at a low level. I don't remember exactly. I wish it would tell you what it was run at. Denoise has been applied to this photo. I also warmed it up from the straight out of camera. Warmed it up and did a very light edit with reducing highlights, increasing shadows, and lifting the blacks and a slight amount of dehaze. Then from there, 19 of these enhanced images were stacked in Starry Landscape Stacker, and this is what it yielded. A pretty clean stack from that. So here's the lightly edited and stacked image. So from there, what I will do is run that through Starnet++ and do a star removal. Now this one here, also I have pre-edited that file. You can see nothing else was done here. A very slight contrast curve on the tone curve, and in color mixer I do what's kind of a color separation, where I've taken the reds in the rock here and these yellowish here, and separated them out. What I've done is I've taken these reds, I've shifted the hue slightly more to red to get it away from those yellows. I've increased the saturation. I've left the luminance the same. On these yellow ones, that's basically here, and it picks up some of the yellow in the Milky Way there as well. Those are shifted slightly more to yellow, a little bit more saturation, and a little bit more in the luminance. I also selected one more point in the core of the Milky Way up here, moved that more towards yellow because the sky was very blue. And also the overall, well, on the pre-edit, the overall was warmed up. So this sky, it was considerably warmer than it would have been Anyway, normally what I would do, if it was dark, I would warm the foreground and leave the sky basically as it was. Now, what I do then is take what Starnet++, the starless version, spits out, and that plus the star mask that it spits out, and I will take those into Photoshop and layer those up. So here's our starting image. That was the starless, and I add a layer on it that is a curves layer. The curves layer I set to a soft light blend mode, which is a contrast blend mode. Now, doing that makes, since it's a night image, doing that makes the darks very dark. So the curve that I used on that significantly brighten that image. I used to just do copy a pixel layer and do that as a soft light, but don't have to do that. I've learned that just a blank adjustment layer set on soft light does the same thing. And here I can brighten it right here to add the contrast without without killing the shadows that are in there. Now, I did want to bring up some of the darkest shadows here, kind of basically reduce some of the contrast in that foreground. So what I did there, this is pretty slight, but I copied the image and in Camera Raw, boosted the shadows, lifted the blacks, saturated that a lot, and applied that only to the darkest shadows using a brush and luminosity mask. If I click on the mask here, you'll see where that applies. Actually, I did a luminosity mask on that and did not brush that in, and blurred that mask just slightly. So that's what we have there. That adds the first contrast layer. Next, what I like to do to bring out contrast in all these dark bits and the dark lanes through the Milky Way is I add a high pass filter layer to just the Milky Way. Here, a high pass is done. Where are you there? The high pass is done, and also on a blend mode of overlay. You could use overlay or soft light. Overlay is a little more aggressive, but I actually ended up reducing its opacity a little bit. So that's gets us nearly done. That brings a lot of these dark lanes in, off, and on. That brings a lot of that out. It's kind of like pouring cream in your coffee, and you get all those delicious little dark lines in there and all that contrast. Now, the next thing I like to do, I like to add a sharpen layer. And I'll turn that one back on. And so I have a group here with two sharpen levels. The first one, this is a layer that was just a stamp visible layer, then used filter, unsharp mask, and then also another high pass layer at a lower level, and then both of those basically share the same mask. You can see the mask with a luminosity. Well, actually, this was painted in just to the highlight areas to kind of give a selective sharpening. You can see what that does. That brings these pinnacles in the foreground it makes them pop out from the background. It makes these highlights go. Yeah, kind of backing up a bit. Let me turn that sharpen level off. Oops, cancel that. So this high pass layer, that brings this out. What I do on that, you can see I've masked it only into the Milky Way there. But this I tend to, I don't know how I came up with this. I think I saw somebody's tutorial on this, but the level of high pass that I do, basically I choose the pixel level of high pass at the megapixel count of the camera. So it's a fairly high level. It's a 24 megapixel Sony a7 III. So the pixel level I choose for the high pass is about 24, and then you use that overlay blend mode. That's what gives that. On my sharpen layer, this high pass is at a much lower level, like you would normally sharpen. It's usually around 5 or 6 pixels for that, but that's what makes those things, gives that micro contrast to those areas. Then the next is the star mask is put back on as a screen blend mode, and sometimes that leaves it a little bit dull, so levels are applied directly to those stars that came out of the mask that Starnet++ delivered, and just to brighten those up a little bit and make them pop a little bit better. And that is the star level on. So I don't reduce stars, but the reason why I like to keep it out is all of these contrast and sharpening with the stars in really makes the stars bloat. So it keeps all the stars in without them, growing or losing the color that's in them. And that's how I did this particular image. Thanks for watching.